Voices. Voices inside my head. They all say the same thing. They preach of my insignificance. They feed on my fear. It's written that Jesus gives me the strength to do anything. He told me to change the world, to tell others about His love. I just want to make a difference. But who am I? What if the voices are wrong? I can reach one. But what if God wants me to reach millions? What if my dreams aren't big enough? I feel something stirring. What if God is about to pour His Spirit on my people? I hear a new voice. It's a waterfall. It's thunder. The whisper of a question. Who will carry the message? Here I am. Send me. Sent me. Who are you sent?
We are living in historical times. For the first time in history, there are more people who are connected to the internet than those who are not. For the first time in history, technology is enabling us to communicate in real time with anyone, anywhere, with audio and video. Technology is radically transforming the way that we live. It's transforming the way we entertain ourselves, transforming the way that we shop. It's transforming the way that we communicate, the way that we do business, and even the way that we do church. Because of the times that we are living in, at Asia Pacific Media, we believe this is an opportunity for us to make history. To make history by leveraging this technology to create communities and partnerships that were not possible before. To make history by equipping thousands of media workers all across Asia. By breaking barriers and providing training to new countries and new people groups. By being on the cutting edge and finding new ways to use technology to communicate the truth, hope, and love that can only be found in the person of Christ. Our prayer is that through our efforts that we might change the history of a life, the history of a church, and maybe even the history of a nation. We are living in historic times. Partner with us and let's make history together.
Yan si Jesus. Ano ba to? Hi, I'm Floyd, and I will assist you today. Yan si Jesus, our evangelistic videos showing how Jesus identifies with us. Nakasama natin siya sa ups and downs ng ating buhay. Pero, marami pang tao ang hindi nakakalam nito. Tama? Together, ipamalitan natin ang mabuting balita na ito sa lahat ng tao. So, we invite churches to join our Yan si Jesus churchwide campaign. All the materials are free to use. Sa inyong mga local churches, online outreach, or even sa inyong discipleship groups. Mag-fill up lang ang inyong churches sa link na ito. And we will share with you the content and materials for this exciting campaign. MMM. Mobilize, Motivate, Measure. Mobilize a team of volunteers. The link we provided contains all the suggested steps na kailangan nyo para maging effective ang campaign na ito. Mayroon din kaming suggested sermon outline na pwede nyong gamitin as you launch your evangelistic campaign. Motivate your team to believe for hearts to be touched when the videos are shared. The link also has the suggested Yan si Jesus videos that you can share on a weekly basis. You can share directly from your church Facebook wall in video, or you can send directly sa messenger privately na gusto mong i-reach out ng mga tao. From this, you can start an ongoing conversation about life in Christ. Measure impacts by collating feedback and responses from contacts. Ito naman ay para mag-gauge ng inyong churches ang impact sa paggamit ng videos na ito in sharing Jesus online. Ilan ba ang na-reach out ng campaign? Ilan ba ang nag-respond at ilan din ang nakakilala at tumanggap kay Jesus? All this can be modified ng inyong church team kung paano mas magiging effective para sa inyong target audience. Iba-iba man tayo ng pag-share online, ang goal natin ay iisa lang, is to share Jesus to as many people in our circle of influence as we possibly can. It's time to engage people online. Sumali na sa Yan si Jesus campaign.
Do you have a camera? Do you desire to expand your skills and make a difference in your community? Join us for a 2-day in-person photography training. In this Multiply Masterclass, you'll learn how to capture photos that stand out from the rest and gain hands-on experience photographing worship services, community events, and church architecture. Our instructor will guide you through the basics of photography, lighting, and composition. Day 1, Theory and Samplers. Day 2 will be a photo walk session in Manila. You'll also have the opportunity to connect with other photographers and share your work in a supportive and collaborative environment. Register now for our 2-day church photography training and take your skills to the next level.
A Attention all aspiring filmmakers and directors. Are you ready for Likha 2023 Short Film Lab? Do you have a passion for creating short films and desires to use media to make Jesus known? Then we've got the perfect opportunity for you. Join Likha 2023 and showcase your creativity to the world. The rules are simple. Attend our 4-week short film lab training and create a short film of no more than 10 minutes in length and submit it to our panel of judges. The theme for this year's contest is Wisdom Through Proverbs. So get ready to push your boundaries and create something truly unique. Not only will you get the chance to learn from master Christian filmmakers, showcase your skills, but you'll also have the opportunity to win some incredible prizes, including cash rewards. So what are you waiting for? Join Likha 2023 Short Film Lab today and let your imagination run wild.
And we're back.
Good evening, everyone.
Magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat. Thank you for tuning in tonight.
Ayan, so welcome po sa lahat ng nag-tune in ngayon sa ating bagong webinar. So my name is Pat and welcome to Media and Ministry Forum. We are a ministry of Asia Pacific Media. We are a media ministry that's based here in Manila, Philippines, and our mission is to advance the gospel by equipping Christ followers to use media and technology effectively. Ayun.
Magandang gabi po. Ako po si JR Manalo. Ako po ay part ng video production team. Again, salamat sa mga suki natin naka-tune in ngayong gabi. So, siguro po, again, tag po ninyo ang inyong mga church team and tingnan natin kaya Pat kung nasaan yung mga natin, audience this night. Kanina may nakita ko Pagadian eh.
Yeah, tag ninyo, type your location and saan church kayo and we'll give you a shout out. Ayan.
No.
Sige nga, Sir Vince, magpakita nga tayo ng mga...
ito pala yung taga-Pagadian, si Sir Marvin. Magandang gabi po sa inyo.
Wow, all the way from Pagadian. Good evening po.
Tingnan natin kung may mas malayo pa sa kanya. Maayong gabi sabi ni Sir JP.
Ayan. Okay. So we have si Abel from Benguet United Methodist Church.
Good evening po. Nakakatuwa naman si Ma'am Berlin. Again, Ma'am Berlin, thanks for tagging everyone. Talagang shoutout niya. Tara, let's upload. Talagang suki natin si Ma'am Berlin. Thank you po, Ma'am Berlin. See you this Friday po.
Yeah, and dyan si Sir John Henry from Ozamis City sa Mindanao.
Sa pangmalayo yun. Ito, malupit kaya pa to. Si John D. From United Bahrain. Wow!
Ano oras na ba dyan sa Middle East, no?
Lahat ng tatalo sa kanya. Magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat.
Ayun. Alright.
Baguio, San Mateo, Pangasinan. Nakakatuwa naman.
Ayun. So muli maraming salamat po for tuning in. And before we start the webinar, by the way, kung first time mong manood ng webinar, we do this twice a month, and yun nga po, yung desire namin is to equip local churches in doing church media, iba't ibang mga topics. And right now we are doing photography. Ayan. And speaking of photography, we have an upcoming master class, no? And one of the things that we do dito sa AP Media is training. Ayan. And this coming Friday and Saturday ay magsisimula na yung ating visual storytelling through photography. Ayan. And we are excited dahil we have our partner, si Joshua Chu, who will be teaching our class, our master class this Friday. So kung hindi ka pa nakakapag-sign up and you want to learn about, skills and elevate your skills in photography, please sign up sa ating visual storytelling masterclass. Just go to epmedia.org/photography. Pwede pang umabol.
Yes,
Ayan.
pwede pa. And we encourage everyone na take advantage of this training kasi hindi namin siya open up for everyone to join. Talagang may limited number of students kami
Limited
that we want
capacity
to
lang siya.
para lahat ay talagang maka-experience ng hands-on training. And sa mga nagtatanong kung kailangan ba ng DSLR para mag-join sa training na ito, hindi nyo po kailangan ng DSLR. You can use your phone po. And if you really want to use proper camera, we can siguro lend you during the training po dito sa office namin. So yun po, we highly encourage everyone to join.
Okay, and also upcoming, we will be launching our Likha 2023. So para doon sa hindi pa nakakaalam kung ano ba yung Likha, this is our annual short film camp. Ayan, so kung meron kayong kilalang aspiring filmmaker or ikaw mismo, you have a heart for creating short films, redemptive Christian short films, we invite you to join this film camp. Kasi una, libre ito. This is a free training that we offer. This goes for 6 weeks and you will be immersed and exposed sa iba't ibang mga instructor sa filmmaking. Ano pa bang kailangan nila malaman dito, bro?
Yung ang mga magtuturo dito ay veteran filmmakers, cinematographers, producers sa film na mga kapatid natin sa pananampalataya. And siguro kung magbabayad tayo, kung babayaran natin yung fee nila, mahirapan tayo i-afford. Pero buti nila meron tayong mga partners talagang meron din heart for teaching and discipling yung mga ating media workers. So take advantage of this free training po.
Yeah, so again, this is free and limited slots only. So we award scholars doon sa mga mag-a-apply, and then we also give prizes, cash prize doon sa mga mananalo kasi each scholar will produce their own project, and at the end magkakaroon tayo ng film fests where we will award winners. Ayan.
Talagang cash prize, 15,000, 10,000, and 5,000. And marami pa kaming special prizes na ibibigay sa mga mapapalad na mananalo for this contest.
Ayun. Okay. So again, make sure to tune in sa ating instructor tonight dahil we will be giving our question of the night and you will get a chance to win merchandise from Asia Pacific Media.
Yeah. Okay, tapos and everyone, please do continue to send stars if you can. If you feel blessed by this webinar, we encourage you po to send stars, and we appreciate po everyone who's supporting yung mga gantong ministry na wanting to really educate Christian workers sa gawain.
Okay, so with that, babalik kami after these few reminders.
Do you have a camera? Do you desire to expand your skills and make a difference in your community? Join us for a 2-day in-person photography training. In this Multiply Masterclass, you'll learn how to capture photos that stand out from the rest and gain hands-on experience photographing worship services, community events, and church architecture. Our instructor will guide you through the basics of photography, lighting, and composition. Day 1. Theory and samplers. Day 2 will be a photo walk session in Manila. You'll also have the opportunity to connect with other photographers and share your work in a supportive and collaborative environment. Register now for our 2-day church photography training and take your skills to the next level.
Ayun. So muli, that's the Multiply Masterclass. Sign up. Pwede pang humabol. Friday, mag-i-start ang ating classes. Ayan. Alright. So our topic for tonight is composition and seeing with your gift of sight. Ayun. So very interesting tong topic na to tonight, bro. No?
Maraming makaka-relate dito, lalo na yung may mga desire to create. Kung nagtataka ba't minsan ang ganda naman ng cellphone ko, ang ganda naman ng camera ko, but hindi ko makuha yung magandang shot. Ano bang kailangan ko matutunan? I think this is the perfect webinar po para sa inyo ngayong gabi.
Actually, what I love about this topic, and especially nung na-discuss natin to with our special guest instructor, talagang it's not just the gears, di ba? It's not just the equipment that makes a good photo. Kumbaga, kailangan meron kang mata. Siyempre, lahat naman tayo merong mata. Pero what I mean is, you have eye for seeing beauty. And tonight, tuturuan tayo niyan ng ating guest instructor, and his name is Sir Noel Roque. So he is a father, husband, and a lifelong photo enthusiast and gearhead. So he started his photographic journey right out of college. Ayun. So he bought his first camera, a Nikon FM with 50mm f1.8 Nikon lens with money saved while working one of his early jobs in advertising. His passion for photography grew over the years as a means of self-expression and storytelling while capturing moments, places, and people frozen in time with his camera. The early 2000s saw the transitions from analog to digital cameras, which of this day continue to bring a lot of convenience, ease of equipment, and efficiency of workflow. Despite this transition, adapting to digital equipment in broadcasting and doing professional event photography for over 13 years, Noel didn't lose sight of discipline, intentionality, and other lessons learned from his film days. So excited ako sa magiging learnings natin tonight. So let's welcome our instructor for tonight, si Sir Noel Roque.
Okay, yon. All the way from USA, Sir Noel.
All the way from LA.
Magandang gabi sa inyong lahat. Good evening, Philippines. And good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are in this world. No? Guys, thank you for having me. First off, I want to thank our viewers, those people that joined tonight. Thank you for taking the time to join us in this forum. And then secondly, I want to especially thank AP Media for giving me this opportunity. Binisita ko lang kayo. Tapos, nabigyan pa ako ng trabaho tonight.
So, for sure maraming mabibigyan po.
Privilege. So, tonight, let's talk about composition and...
Sir Noel, wait lang po. So bago po kayo pumunta sa inyong teaching, ano po ba yung may expect ng ating mga viewers po tonight? Sa inyo pong i-share.
Ang title natin is Composition and Seeing with the Gift of Sight. Basically, I'm not going to spend too much time in composition per se. I will enumerate the different types of composition, why we compose, but essentially, ang burden ko is to share yung seeing a certain way. And that's kind of hard to define and explain. I think the best way I could explain that is to show samples of my work. For every composition category, I will be showing images that I have taken. But what is important here is lahat tayo, the takeaway is lahat tayo, may kanya-kanya tayong way of seeing the world, ika nga. May kasabihan, kung halimbawa, maglinya ka ng 5 photographer, at tapos sabihin mo sa kanila, oh, you take a picture of this scene. Very likely, each one of them, iba yung photo. Hindi pare-pareho yan. And the reason for that is because bawat isa sa kanila, they each have a way of seeing the world. At lahat tayo may ganyang sight. And for me, this is a gift na bigay sa atin ng Panginoon kasi tayo lang ang merong ganong klaseng sight. So, my burden is to make people aware that they have such a gift. And if they would use it to, to apply to their, composition, then not only will it help create better photos, but it will help create unique photos as only you have seen.
Amen. Wow. Hanip sa opening. Thank you, Sir Noel. Yeah, looking forward po sa teaching niyo tonight.
Okay po, Sir Noel, God bless po as you share your teaching with us tonight.
Okay, guys. Here we go. All right. So, good evening ulit mga kaibigan, kapatid sa Panginoon. Thank you so much ulit for joining us here. Our topic tonight is composition and seeing with your gift of sight. Nowadays, what is the most common thing that people have? No, may kasabihan, and it sounds like a cliche, but it's very true. It's been said that the best camera you have is the one that's with you. Kasi you can't take a photo without something to take it with. So nowadays, when we talk about the best camera is the one that you have with you, we're talking about your cell phone. Okay. And I think going back to where I started in photography, this was in the early 80s. Okay. I shot film for many years, but mostly I shot film because for me, it was magical. It was a way to freeze moments in time. Yung parents ko kasi marami silang tinago na mga litrato namin nung bata pa kami. And there's something about these pictures that were timeless and they were really aesthetically pleasing to me. So siguro shooting film or taking photographs even back in the day was my way of keeping my memories as they were important to me. And so that went on until I came to the States in 1994. During that time and into the early 2000s, that's more commonly known as the digital transition. Ibig sabihin, the world was moving from an analog type of equipment and into something digital. Nung panahon ko sa AP Media, this might surprise you po, pero nagsimula ho ako sa AP Media in 1988. Okay? And back then, pag nagsushoot ho kami ng video, ang ginagamit namin are tape-based equipment. And I don't think some of you would even know what that is. But we were using what's called U-matic, Betacam, and high-8 tapes from that era. Now, yes, we were using computers to edit the video, but the footage, yung actual material, were all shot on tape, and this is all an analog process. Now, in the early 2000s, the world started shifting to digital equipment, and I remember the very first camera that I ever bought, digital camera. Okay, by then I had many film cameras, but because I was very interested in this digital transition, I bought my first film camera, which is a Canon S10. And if you look that up, that camera is a 2.1 megapixel camera, 2.1 megapixels back in the day, in the early 2000s. And then what happened was, as time went on, as the years went on, from that point, manufacturers started producing cameras with bigger or more megapixels. And so they started what's called at that time the megapixel wars. So cameras started coming out with 2 megapixels, 4 megapixels, 5, 6, until it reached a point where the megapixel count was sufficiently enough to be able to shoot with professionally. And by then, that was probably around 2005. I got a Nikon D70S with 6 megapixels. And the reason why I said this was sufficient enough to shoot professional work, kasi you could make prints for this that were sizable enough and good enough to be given to clients. And I wanted to share also that this transition to digital brought a lot of convenience and workflow. Kasi imagine mo naman, best example is your cell phone. With your cell phone, you can take an infinite amount of pictures. And then you can just choose whichever one you like. It's very convenient. And what's convenient about that too is that you don't have to think about the hows of taking a picture, because yung cell phone does it for you. Even your DSLR camera, okay, if you put it on program mode, all you have to do is snap the photo and the camera does the rest. It determines the exposure, and it determines the simulation that it will show when you see the image on the screen. So yung digital brought a lot of conveniences with it, and these are a godsend, okay, because then you could concentrate on just taking the picture. But the problem is, do you? That's the question. Because I see a lot when I walk around. When I take pictures, usually I started doing this in a group setting when I joined photography groups here in Los Angeles. I don't know if you guys have heard meetup.com. No? In meetup.com, you can see a lot of groups with like-minded interests. And in 2015, okay, I joined meetup groups around Los Angeles with the purpose of taking my kind of photos. By 2015, nag-transition ako. If I may go back a little bit, just to give you some background, in 2005, I basically acquired a camera to be able to take professional photos. So I started doing events on the side, okay? So I was working and then I had events on the side. By that, I mean yung mga weddings, parties, ganyan-ganyan. I did it all on the side. In 2008, I was working for a Christian nonprofit and doing photography on the side. I lost my job because back then in 2008, there was a recession here in the States and a lot of people lost their jobs. In 2008 also, I made a decision to be my son's caregiver. And just as a little bit of a background, I have a son with special needs, which is the reason why I came to the States. And in 2008, I'm sorry, during the recession, when I lost my job, I made a decision to be his caregiver. And because I was his caregiver, then kailangan kong kumita. Hindi naman pwedeng aalagaan ko siya during the week. I mean, I had to have some type of work. So what happened was I contracted a job. I became a contract vendor for a big wedding company in the East Coast. And ang nangyayari po noon, sila yung nagpapadala ng trabaho sa akin. Okay, they send me the jobs, and then all I had to do was go to the event, the wedding, corporate event, or I even shot red carpet for a time, believe it or not. Go to the particular assignment, take the photos, and then all I need to do was send it to them, and they took care of the rest. They post-processed it, they presented it to the client, and they did all the rest of that stuff, and they only paid me to shoot. And I worked this way on weekends during the wedding season. Here in the States, the wedding season is about 8 to 9 months out of the year. And during this 8 to 9 months, I was busy almost every weekend taking these events. And then on the week, during the weekdays, I took care of my son. This is very important kasi a lot of the skills that I honed when it comes to using digital equipment, the camera, was born out of this professional experience. But at some point in 2015, I told the wedding company that I would start to choose jobs. Mamimili na ako ng trabaho kasi I felt it was time for me. I had this burden to really shoot what I like to shoot only for myself. And I thought, Lord, sana magkaroon ako ng way na to shoot the type of shots that I like to shoot and not just being paid to shoot. So finally, in 2018, I made the transition into retirement from professional work. I became my own photographer, in short. And in going back to 2015, that's when I started shooting landscape and fine art photography. I joined, like I said earlier, I joined these meetup groups, and I made a lot of friends, my photo buddies, and these friends of mine. We would take road trips, and we would go places and do our thing, shoot our photos. At one point, about a year after I joined the meetup groups, I was given an opportunity to participate in a photo contest here in LA that was sponsored by an art gallery. And this one particular meetup group that initiated the contest, they asked all the members to submit entries, up to 3 entries, and they were going to choose just 10 to be part of that exhibit in this local art gallery. So I submitted 3 entries, and to my surprise, I wasn't really expecting anything. To my surprise, out of the 3 images that I took or I submitted, 2 of them were taken to be part of the 10 photos to be part of that exhibit in that art gallery. I was the only one, with 2 images out of that 10 to be part of that exhibit. And I thought, wow, this is really something. And that started my, my photographing landscape and fine art, to the point that after that, shortly, when I really started doing this, I started going on road trips. I would go as much as 4 to 5 road trips a year, going to different places, camping out and just doing photography with my photo buddies. I came back and had a ton of pictures. And the short of it is, as I grew in that type of photography, I started being exhibited by other galleries. And in the end, I chose 3 galleries to exhibit my work. And I would exhibit in these galleries on a rotating basis. Hindi po sabay-sabay. Pa isa-isa. So like this month, dito sa gallery na to, and then this month, dito sa gallery na to, and so on and so forth. And I did that from about 2017 right until before the pandemic. Right before they locked down LA, I was in an exhibit. And right now, I haven't really done that since the lockdown, because I am at a time of my life right now where I have to focus on my son. But I shared this sort of long-winded background to give you an idea of my photographic journey. Kasi may edad na tayo. Probably the oldest in this group. I'm 63 years old. And it has been such a journey. And what I have experienced is that nowadays, even a phone, even a phone can help you make really great images. But the question is, how do you utilize this? So with all of that as a background, let's go into our subject for tonight, composition and seeing with your gift of sight. So I'm not really going too much into composition the way I've given you the background, because these rules of composition or types of composition, you can find out all this information online. But I'm going to run over them briefly and show you examples so that makikita natin yung context of why we compose and applying the way we see into our composition. So composition and seeing with your gift of sight. Composition sa photography is the way you arrange the elements of a scene. And why do we arrange the elements of a scene? Kasi hopefully when we arrange these elements, we come up with a pleasing image. And then when we do arrange these elements, basically what you're doing is you're helping the viewer, whoever is going to see your photo, you're going to help them to see the important elements of your scene. And because you are doing that, one step further is that they will focus on a specific subject or a specific element of your scene. And while we're talking about elements in photography, these are some of the compositional elements involved when you're taking a photo. And I wanted to look at examples, photo examples from what I've shot to illustrate this. And I was pleasantly surprised to find this photo, this sample photo, that pretty much had everything in it. And again, this photo I shot as part of a meetup group. We were walking around downtown LA, dun sa tinatawag na Arts District. Okay, marami pong mga ano doon, artsy places, shops, what have you, cafes, restaurants, at mga boutique stores that had some very artsy type of displays and architecture. And this particular display or store struck me. And I took a picture of it. And now I'm using it as an example because the incredible thing about it is halos lahat ng compositional elements covered na dito. Okay? You see lines, you see shapes, colors, balance, and even perspective, all in just one shot. And I thought it was incredible. So I use this as an example, and this is all about the elements that happens, or that we see when we take photos. Now, it doesn't always have to be in one picture, but these are the elements that comprise, photos. Okay, so let's come to the types of composition, and I'm not really going to go into this in depth, okay? Because there's a wealth of information online. If you Google this, you'll find a ton of articles, more than we could ever digest. And then there's also YouTube, and you'll see a lot of videos showing this and even doing tutorials on these types of composition. But what I'd like to show, at least, is I'm going to run through them and show you photos that I've taken that relate to these types of composition, like the rule of thirds, the golden ratio, framing or subframing, symmetry, creating depth, which is, to me, two types of showing depth. One is a deep depth of field where everything looks in focus. Like, for example, if you were shooting a landscape, basically everything is in focus. Or a shallow depth of field, like if you were doing a portrait or doing a macro or doing something with a subject in the foreground that the background blurs. So you've got subject separation. That's creating a shallow depth of field. Then you have negative space where you position your subject in one end or one part of the scene, and you have this massive area with nothing else in it, negative space. And then we have leading lines, okay, diagonals, repeating patterns, at marami pang iba. And I'm going to show you samples of some of the photos I've taken with these types of composition. So here's a sample of doing the rule of thirds. And basically, what is the rule of thirds? No? Kung tayo po ay naglaro nung tinatawag na tic-tac-toe, di ba? Basically, what that happens is you form two lines vertical and you form two lines horizontal, and they sort of crisscross each other. At sinasabi po sa rule of thirds na they recommend na yung subject be in an area at the points of thirds. So kung halimbawa, tayo po ay gumawa ng basically these lines here where they crisscross. Ito pong ating subject dito, this cottage is within what they call the points of thirds, where the lines meet. Ika nga, there would be 4 points, and those are called the points of thirds. By the way, this shot was taken in the Yukon in Canada. The first time I saw the Northern Lights, it was spiritual. It was more than just a photographic experience. It was spiritual. And then we have these other shots as well. This one was taken in a ghost town called Bodie in the Eastern Sierras. Likewise, this photo here that I'm pointing at, this one was taken at an area adjacent to the ghost town called Mono Lake, where they have these salt structures, which, by the way, we also have in the Philippines. We have them in Coron, in Palawan, and parts of the country. I've seen them in Nueva Ecija and close to the mountains. There was a river with a lot of these salt structures. But these are examples of placing the subject in the points of thirds. Okay, this next one is a little bit more complicated. This one is called the golden ratio. I think it's better shown than explained. Basically, the golden ratio is something that was developed not just for photography, but by artists, even way back, okay? It talks about a certain proportion. And what I did was I copied a diagram from the internet. This is the diagram, and it basically shows you what's called the golden spiral. And basically what's happening here is you would place key elements of the scene within this spiral. So you could think of this as kind of an enhanced rule of thirds, but it doesn't just limit you to the 4 points of thirds. You could be placing your subject in the corner, and then you would create a flow with the other elements of the photo to follow this particular type of composition. And I tried to illustrate it with this portrait that I took of this young lady. And then on a larger scale, I have examples of these photos that I took. This is actually a shot of a high school senior portrait. You know, this was a paid gig. I was photographing a high school student who was graduating and going into college. And actually, these photos, they weren't even part of what she wanted, because a lot of these photos are really portraits, okay? But we were in this really nice location. This is called the Pasadena City Hall. And when you're in this place, parang wala ka sa States. It's like you're in Europe somewhere. And so I made use of the location, and I did something for myself. I mean, she didn't really ask me to photograph this. You know what? It turned out it became her favorite. Even if she's small in the photo, it became a favorite. So much so that she ordered one copy of each, 20 inches by 30 inches wide. So that's a relatively good sized print, even for an exhibit. She liked it so much, she ordered big prints of each. So this is an example of the golden ratio. Next, we have framing. And if you can look at this image, you can sort of see that I had framed this mountaintop here inside this hole. Ito pong lugar na ito, nasa California ito. This is an area called the Alabama Hills. It's not in Alabama, it's in California. And in the Alabama Hills, there's an iconic place called the Arch Rock. Ito po yung tinatawag na Arch Rock. And this is an early photo that I took, believe it or not. I took this way back 2010. Okay, that's how far back I started doing this landscape stuff. And the moment I saw it, even, you know, without this rule in mind, framing, that was the way I saw the shot, and I shot it. And then I just played around with the sun to create this sort of halo effect. That's kind of like the icing on the cake. So that's one example of framing. And then this next one, this was more recent. This was from a walking tour of the bridges of Los Angeles. These bridges have a lot of these architectural structures. And I framed that grid tower at the back as a sort of a contrast of the old and the new. You have this architecture, a tower or this arch that was probably made during the 20s and 30s. And then behind that, you have this grid structure that's more modern. So this is a type or an example of framing. This next one is called symmetry in composition. Okay. Bakit po ito tinawag na symmetry? Kasi basically, pinagko-combine nyo po yung two exact versions of the same thing. If you carefully look at this photo, you're going to see that somewhere here, okay, everything below is actually a reflection of what's on top here. Okay. That's why this is what's called symmetrical. This photo was taken in the Salton Sea, which is also in Southern California. This is a fantastic place to shoot if you ever get the opportunity. A lot of the places here, itong Salton Sea and like yung Alabama Hills na mentioned ko earlier, these areas po, they have a lot of these out of the world scenes that just begs to be photographed. And this is my example for symmetry. This next one, as I mentioned earlier, is creating depth, and this is an example of a deep depth. Here, you can see everything stretches far back, and everything is in relative focus because we want to illustrate the depth of the expanse of this landscape. This, by the way, was taken in Death Valley. This actually, what you're seeing here, itong puti na mga lugar na ito, ano ho ito? It's not snow. These are actually salt. They're salt. They're grains of salt. And this is a unique part of this area. This is called the Bad Water Basin, and this is in Death Valley. And this is my example for creating a deep depth of field. This next one is the opposite. Dito po, ang ginagawa natin is we're creating a shallow depth of field effect because we want to emphasize the subject on the foreground. So sa paggamit natin ng shallow depth of field, we create a subject isolation kasi yung nasa likod blurred, samantalang itong nasa harap in focus. So it helps direct your view towards the subject in the foreground. And then this is my example for negative space. This is where I placed the subject, in this case, this guard tower here. And actually the moon. That was a happy accident kasi nataonan when I shot this photo, it was also the moonrise, the moon set. Nagsaset yung moon, tapos sa likod ko, nagra-rise yung sun. So, maganda yung timing. So I shot this guard tower this way kasi I wanted the guard tower and the moon together in the shot. And I purposely allowed for this huge amount of space on the left as negative space. And this is one example of this type of composition. And here you have leading lines. And they're just lines that you use when you photograph something. And it could be in a landscape, night shot, whatever, which is yung example natin dito. This one uses the road. And this is a clear example of a leading line. The road leads you to somewhere. In this particular scene here, this night shot, I used the trailing lights as leading lines. And then in this particular photo here on the left-hand corner, I used the leading lines of the building structure as leading lines. Okay, so at this point, we've reached the important part of our presentation, at least as far as I'm concerned. Kasi all throughout the previous slides, I had spoken to you from here, okay, from here. And it's in terms of knowing these types of compositions. But from this point on, okay, I'm going to speak to you from here, from my heart. Kasi ito talaga yung ito talaga yung crux ng aking presentation. And this is not going to take too long. Think about this as a sharing. Gusto ko pong mag-share sa inyo kasi sa aking photographic journey, marami kong nakita as I looked around me about, the way people take photos. And I understand lahat tayo iba-iba. No? Hindi naman lahat tayo seryoso sa ating photography. But if you are in this forum and you are interested in photography, this is my burden that I'd like to share with you. And here we go. So, first of all, the thing that I want to state that I am repeating from the background that I gave at the start of the presentation, lahat po tayo binigyan ng tinatawag na a unique way of seeing. Lahat tayo, in the course of our growth, nagkakaedad tayo, lumalaki tayo from, nagsimula tayo, as kids, naging teenager tayo, young adult, and so on, we became adults. Yun hong, the way we see the world is unique to us, and a lot of this has to do with our mindset, but it is reflective of a unique way of seeing the world. And ito pong unique way of seeing the world, tayo lang po ang meron yan. Nobody can replicate this kasi bawat tao, they see the world very differently. Itong seeing na ito na tinatawag ko, and I struggled with how to explain this as best I could. I think the best way that I could explain it is show my photography in the context of the types of composition. So I'm hoping that somehow you would see the way I saw when I took those pictures. Itong seeing na to, when we apply it to composing, okay, it brings a unique perspective to the way you compose. What do I mean by that? Earlier, when we welcomed everyone in, you saw the three of us interacting and talking at the start of this webinar. I mentioned to our hosts, kung tayo po ay merong 5 photographer na niline up, and then we asked each one of them to take a photo, then they're all going to be different from each other, because each photographer saw the scene very differently from the other. Okay, so my hope is that when I share this with you, to encourage you to use the way you see the world, your unique gift of sight, sabihin na natin, kaya ginamit ko sa title natin. Hopefully, applying the way you see in your photography will eventually develop your own photographic style that would set your photos apart. Let's not, try to shoot photos because, I like the way Ansel Adams shot this photo, or this photographer, for example, Cartier shot this street scene. Let's try hard not to shoot based on those examples. And there's nothing wrong with learning from the masters, of course. But I'm hoping that when you apply the way you particularly see the world into your composition, that you will develop your own style and it would set your photos apart. Okay? Now, also, I'd like to share a few more points before we move from this slide. And this is just my observations. It's related to all the points I discussed with you earlier. When you approach a scene, okay, sana po, we take time to take in the scene, okay? I remember when I first saw the Grand Canyon years ago, when I was walking the viewing deck, every person that I saw, guess what they did right away when they got there? They pulled their phones out and they started taking pictures. And essentially, there's nothing wrong with that. Kaya lang, I don't really expect them to take photos the way I take them. But I thought, sayang naman, kasi here you are in this majestic scene. I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen pictures of the Grand Canyon, but there is no justice to actually being there and seeing it for yourself. I had this funny thought nung nakatayo ako doon, and I thought, my gosh, if God had a bowl, a bowl, like a bowl ng pagkain, okay? If God had a bowl, this would probably be his bowl, because it is such a huge expanse that kind of looked like a bowl. And then also, when the first time I saw the Northern Lights, I said it was something spiritual, because it just touched me in a way. And the reason why it touched me in both places is because I took the time to take it in. And to me, that's very important. The other thing that will help, and these are just, little bits of encouragement that I hope to share with everybody. I had a professor in college when we had taken, way back when I was in college, there was a subject, a course in photography. And the first day that professor came, the first thing he said was, if there's anything I want you to take away from this course, it's this. Think in terms of pictures, he said. Think in terms of pictures. And I emphasize that kasi ito ang aking paniwala, no? As a photographer, bago mo pa sinute yung photo, before you took your photo, you actually saw it in your head. Think about that for a moment. If you are serious about taking a photo, okay, I'm not talking about, selfies or family photos or what you call casual photography. I'm talking about, serious intentional photos, actually even family photos. If you make it a practice to think in terms of pictures, okay, believe me, if you think about it carefully, the reason why you shot the photo that way is because you first saw it in your mind. Think about that for a moment. So think in terms of pictures, because if you're serious about taking photos, you actually have seen it even before you took the shot. The camera is just your way of executing what you saw. Yung camera po ang ginagamit nating paraan para maipakita natin yung ating photograph. Pero bago pa natin kinuha yung photo, naniniwala ako, nakita na natin sa ating pag-iisip. Okay? The other thing is be intentional. Okay, be intentional. What I mean by that is a lot of people nowadays, like I said earlier, they were on this beautiful scenery of the Grand Canyon, and all they did was take pictures. They take pictures and pictures and pictures. And it's so funny because I have friends on Facebook, and they would do a photo dump. Okay, they would do a photo dump from their cell phone. They would post it on Facebook, and they're in these fantastic places all over the world. And then they would have a photo dump of 30, 50, sometimes as many as 100 photos. They would just do a photo dump on Facebook. And I thought, my gosh, who has the time to see all of those photos? They couldn't even take the time to choose because they took so many photos. And then when I looked at the photos, I saw that many of them were actually repeats. I mean, they would take several photos of the same scene, the exact same photo. They would take like 2 or 3 shots or more of it, but they would just go ahead and post it anyway. So be intentional about your photography. And then the other thing that I'd like to emphasize too is that shoot what moves you. When you take a scene in, okay, you take a look at it, you take it in, you will notice that something about the scene will move you. Okay, why do I say shoot what moves you? Kasi this is all related to my earlier points. And this is it. Photography is our way of self-expression. Ika nga, di ba? Through photography, we express ourselves. And when we shoot something that moves us, I'm hoping that if it moves us, it will probably move the viewer. If we take the time to take in the scene before we take our photos, and we shoot photos that move us, very likely it will also move the viewer. And this has happened to me many times. I mean, when I'm in an exhibit, somebody would just walk up to me and say, "Oh my gosh, your photo, blah, blah, blah." And they're not necessarily talking about admiring the photo. That was part of it. But something about the photo spoke to them, whether it was something about their childhood or a place they've been or something that happened to them. They would always tell me, "Oh, this photo reminded me of this, blah, 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 blah," So shoot what moves you. And the last piece of advice for this particular section is this: shoot for yourself. Don't compare yourself with other photographers, other people, okay? shoot for yourself. Now, I know this may not necessarily apply to everyone. I think I am blessed at this point in my life, having gone through so many years of just enjoying photography, that I've reached a point where I am truly blessed. I feel grateful, and I'm truly blessed to be able to shoot for myself. I'm thankful for the years that I spent shooting professionally, because I learned a lot. Okay, I learned to use equipment. I learned a lot about my photography, and it also gave me an income. But mostly, it has allowed me to reach a point where I don't have to shoot for anyone else. Sometimes I do. I mean, I would take a job occasionally. You know, if I love doing portraits, and on occasion I would still take a portrait job, or what you guys might call an engagement session, for example, something that doesn't take the whole day. But I am blessed at this point in my life that I don't have to shoot for anyone else but myself. But you can do that too, whether you are working as a professional photographer, or whether you just want to be, to develop in your photography. Take the time to shoot for yourself. Don't shoot for anyone else. Just shoot for yourself. Don't compare yourself with other photographers. Just shoot for yourself. And I think you'll discover that it's more fun, and it's also where you will mostly grow. And that's it for this part of the presentation. This next one, we're covering something more practical, and I'm going to go through this rather faster, because I don't know if I consumed too much time already at this point. But one way to compose in a practical sense is to use the cell phone, because the cell phone is something that we always have. Okay. And the cell phone is important to me in the sense that if I wanted to pre-visualize a scene, because I don't just take photos, okay? Especially if it's something that I'm intending to print or exhibit. I'm not talking about paid gigs. I'm talking about shooting for yourself. If this is something that was important enough for me to print or to show in an exhibit, I will be very careful and take my time to take that photo. And the process includes pre-visualizing it. What do I mean by that? If we were walking around and I attempted to pre-visualize a scene at kinunan ko ito sa cellphone ko, then I can decide, do I want this? Do I like it? Does it move me? I ask myself questions like that. And if I don't really have a satisfactory answer to those concerns, I just move on. I walk on and I, examine each scene, looking for compositions and feeling myself to see if the particular composition moves me, or if I like it, or, if I want to shoot it. Okay. And the phone is a really great help for doing that sort of thing. Kasi sa phone, nakikita mo na eh. You don't have to waste your time setting your camera or whatever. You can pre-visualize it using your phone. And that is a big help for composing and pre-visualization. Speaking of visualizing on the phone, these are the two apps that I use when I pre-visualize using the cell phone. One of them is called Magic Film Viewfinder, and you can find this on the App Store with iOS, and I suppose they also have this in the Play Store for Android, but I'm not exactly sure because I use an iPhone, and these are the apps that I use. This first one here, this called Magic Film Viewfinder. I use this, as the term implies, I use this mostly for shooting film. Dito sa Magic Film Viewfinder, the app has frame lines, okay, for pretty much all types of film cameras, from 35 millimeter to medium format to large format, 5x7, 8x10. Lahat ho yan covered nitong finder na to. So what is one example of this, of me utilizing this finder? let me show you samples of, okay, we'll cover that later. But later on, I will show you samples of what cameras I use with this particular finder and why this is very important. This other one is called Viewfinder Preview. Ito naman, I mostly use this for digital cameras because this one allows you to create specific field of views and specific lens configuration so that you could pre-visualize the image in a digital camera. This is more conducive for that type of application. Okay. So here are examples of my shot using the Magic Viewfinder camera app. These images, they were all shot on film. This particular scene on top, this was shot with a Bronica, which is kind of like a Hasselblad. It's a square format type camera. So it uses medium format and it shoots in a square aspect ratio, 6:6. And then in this particular execution, what I did was I created what's called in photographic language a triptych, okay? Meaning 3 photos combined, but separate, okay? And basically what I did was I shot this first photo straight on, just in the straight perspective. And then I shot this middle one and I shot this third one. And these are all parts of the same block. I could shoot this all as a panorama like this one below, but I chose to shoot it this way because I wanted to show it as a triptych. So this is one way you can challenge yourself. And see, this is what I mean by thinking in terms of pictures. Because before I decided to even shoot the photo, I thought to myself, wow, I mean, if I had this type of camera, this box camera that shoots 6:6, I can shoot a triptych. And that's exactly what I did. Okay. This next one, underneath it, this was shot on a camera that has a 6:17 aspect ratio or format. And this has a really big negative, this particular camera. I'll show you what it looks like after this slide. But this particular one is a great camera to use for panorama because it has such a large negative, okay? 6 centimeters by 17 centimeters. If you cut an 8:10 paper in half horizontally, you'd have a size that's very close to the size of the negatives of this camera. And this camera, because it has such a large negative, this can only take 4 individual shots. Okay, can you imagine that? So with film being expensive nowadays, if you can only take 4 shots with that, you better be sure you want to take that shot because it's expensive. The film is expensive. You have to pay for post-processing and scanning. Okay. And plus, when I use this camera, I normally do 2 shots. I bracket. So I shoot one with the standard exposure, and I would shoot one that was overexposed by 1 stop. So in a sense, dun sa 4 shots na what the camera allows, I've only really just shot 2 scenes, if you think about that. So you really have to be sure that you want what you're shooting when you shoot with a camera like this. And then this is another example of another format, a 6:9 format, which is basically similar to a 3:2 aspect ratio. Okay. But I gave this example below kasi dito sa example na to, I basically just cut this 6:9 format in half. And what it gave me is an exact 3:1 aspect ratio that was suitable to make a panorama. So, kaya importante yung cellphone kasi for me to create this panorama, I simulated it by using the app of the cell phone. So I could have a representation of what this looked like even before I took the time to shoot it. And that's why these cell phones and their apps are really great compositional tools for pre-visualization. So even before you actually take the shot, and these were shots that I took on film. Remember, when you take the shot, you don't even see what it looks like. But you can see what it potentially looks like when you use the phone and the app. Very important. So these are the types of cameras that I have, which are my current favorites. This particular one here, this is called the Hasselblad X-Pan, a very highly sought camera. Unfortunately, I don't have it anymore. I sold it, and the reason for that is because of this camera. This is a digital medium format camera. This is called the Fujifilm GFX 50R. And the reason why I decided that is because this particular camera here, it has an electronic motor. And eventually, you know, motors die. And the problem with this camera is when that happens, it's almost next to impossible to have repaired. So I made a decision to sell it for that reason. And then secondly, the reason why I sold it is because this camera, this digital medium format camera, has such a way of rendering that I'm thinking at this age, I'm 63 years old. You know, when you work with cameras like this, it's not easy carrying them around because they're all metal, they're all mechanical, and they're heavy, you know. This camera in particular, this is the one that took that panorama earlier with this shot. This one, this shot here, the 6x17. This is the 6x17 camera, and it is big. And the cell phone and the app is particularly useful for this 6x17 camera because guess what? You have no focus reference. You set the camera to infinity, and then that's it. You don't have a rangefinder. You don't know what's in focus or not. You don't know it. So basically, you use the phone to pre-visualize your shot, and then you make a determination on the aperture, okay, and you know, your framing, and you set it to infinity, and then you take your shot. So these are examples of the cameras that I have currently. That I have other cameras. I have full frame Nikons, APS-C Fujis. Okay, but these are my favorites. I still shoot film because I love the look of film. And the other thing I wanted to emphasize in showing you this is it's good to challenge yourself. When you're in a photo walk, sometimes just take one format or one aspect ratio. Okay, don't overcomplicate it by taking a lot of cameras. Take one camera and just shoot with one lens. I've done that. Challenge yourself, and then next time use another camera, maybe a 6x9 camera or a full frame camera instead of an APS-C camera, and then use just one lens and use that for your shoot because you challenge yourself, you know, and you come up with compositions that are just specific to that shot, and that's how you grow in your photography. I think that's it at this point. Thank you so much to everyone that stayed this far. Keep in touch. You can follow me on Facebook, on Instagram. I have a gallery of images that were exhibited in the years that I've exhibited pre-pandemic. If you follow this link, you can take the time to view it, and hopefully it will give you better examples of the way I saw these images when I took them, and hopefully they will encourage you and bring you a little closer to improving, you know, in growing as a photographer. Thank you, and thank you, AP Media. Maraming salamat po. God bless everyone.
Ayun. Wow. Galing, galing.
Wow, Sir Noel, mga comment ng tao. Pag pinapakita niyo yung mga picture niyo, wow, ang galing.
Napapawaw sila sa mga photos na pinapakita ninyo.
Oo.
Was it too wordy? Did I
Mm-hmm.
talk too much? I'm sorry.
No, it's just on time, sir.
Just right. Yeah. Ako, personally, I really appreciate you telling a backstory of your, photographic journey. Kaya, guys, let's share and show our appreciation kay Sir Noel by typing in the chat your appreciation. Ayan. So, we're now in our Q&A time. Pero before that, like I said before, every webinar meron tayong giveaway question of the night. Ayan. So, ang question ni Sir Noel for tonight ay ito.
Okay, ready everyone?
Ready? So, name one of the two apps that can help you with visualization and composition. Ayan. So, name one of the two apps that can help you with visualization and composition. So, type your answers and later we will pick our winner for tonight's webinar. Ayan. Okay, so let's go to Q&A.
Yan. Sir Noel, ang daming nagsisend ng appreciation po sa inyo.
Yeah.
Siguro, let's go. Isa-send po natin yung mga tanong. Siguro ako po muna. Siguro yung camera niyo po, magkano po yung Hasselblad niyo? Magkano niyo nabenta?
Truth be told, yung Hasselblad X-Pan na yun, I've had it for 7 years. Okay? And I bought it at a camera show. Kasi dito sa States, may mga camera show, di ba? So, yung mga nagtitinda ng camera, mga used lahat yun, ano? I bought it in a camera show in 2016, I think. And then recently, I sold it. I won't mention the amount, but I'll tell you, it was over 4 times what I paid for it.
What?
Yes. Yes. And the problem with it is, yung mga YouTubers, they review it and they create this hype about this camera, Pero yung X-Pan na yun kasi, there's not a lot of them. It's very rare. Not a lot were made. And if you have one, wow. I mean, nowadays, let's put it this way. If I wanted one, I wouldn't buy it today. Not for that price.
Okay.
And then also, ang problema ng X-Pan is that it has a motor. So pag namatay yung motor na yon, it's almost impossible to fix it. So,
Okay. Good.
but I sold it within a good condition, and
Yes.
the buyer was very happy with it. The buyer was an architect, and he's also an amazing photographer. And I'm happy it went to the right new owner.
Good. Oh, yeah, to everyone po, while we're doing the Q&A, papakita po namin yung website ni Sir Noel. Makita niyo yung
Yeah.
kanyang
Grabe,
photos. Talaga naman. Sige, let's go to the
Okay.
questions po.
So, punta tayo sa first question. Ayan. So, hindi ko mabasa yung pangalan kasi in Korean. Pero sabi niya, these are nice insights. So, thank you for sharing. Taking time is good for still photography. I am thinking, how do I think quickly of composition for church events? No? Siguro, kasi mabilis yung pacing. No? So, how do you quickly think about composition sa mga ganong conditions like church events daw po?
Yeah, this is a good question, and we didn't cover it dito sa ating webinar kasi a lot of this pertains to more personal type of photography. But I have shot quite a number of church events because I volunteer as a church photographer, and I also volunteer as a photographer for other events like family camps. Like I went to a family camp for years for parents with disabled children. And I photographed it, I covered it, okay, and I shot portraits of the family and their special needs child. And in church events like this, basically I would use the same techniques that I would use for photographing events. And this is my particular tips for this sort of shooting, no? My first tip is to give yourself plenty of headroom. I'm kind of old school, okay? I don't believe in in cropping right away if I'm shooting an event. Okay,
Mm.
the reason why I don't crop it in shooting is because you can do it after the fact, especially nowadays when you're shooting with a high resolution camera. If you're shooting with a camera that has even 24 megapixels, if you have to crop that, you will still have a sizable amount of resolution. So, ang sa akin, give yourself enough space and headroom that nothing is chopped or broken, and then you can compose after the fact.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very good tip and very very practical, Sir Noel. Sir Noel, coming from you po for professional photographer, pero you still encourage people to do it siguro later na lang. And
Yeah, kasi the other thing about that, when you give yourself ample room, you can crop it in several different ways. Like for example, the client would order. I mean, I know this is a church event, pero let's say gusto mong i-crop ng vertical, or let's say
Yeah.
gusto mong i-isolate yung certain part of the image, or you want to crop it, you can crop it 7 ways to Sunday if you have enough room. Yeah.
yeah, good. I like that. Yes. Okay, sige po. Next question po tayo. Yeah. Ito, mukhang nasagot niya na po ito kanina, but do you sometimes manipulate photos, post-processing for your own satisfaction? And siguro po, dagdag ko na rin, what software po do you use for
Okay,
manipulate?
this is really a good question, and I'm glad this question was asked. I am what you call a raw shooter. When I shoot, photos for myself, hindi yung paid gig, no? I would shoot in RAW and JPEG format at the same time. Okay. The reason for that is because later on, okay, I have the raw file to process the way I want. I'm going to make a distinction here, and this is really very important. I don't want to offend anybody, but I have friends in the Philippines, okay, who will absolutely not consider a photograph if you process it. In fact, the Camera Club of the Philippines, when they hold competitions, they do not want you to manipulate your image. They want you to shoot it, okay, and you submit that as an entry unmanipulated. I'm going to tell you this, and it's not my intention to offend anybody. You're being naive if you do that. Kasi the JPEG image is a processed image. The camera processed it for you. You are the artist, you are the photographer. You can process your photos the way you want. That's not cheating. Okay? Now, kung halimbawa, pinalitan mo yung clouds. Let's say, walang cloud yun, nilagyan mo ng clouds. That's another story. That's different. Hindi na photograph yun. I call it a fine art image. And using creative license like that is not wrong either. But I just want people to realize the value of shooting in RAW, because when you shoot in RAW, you have the best quality you could ever get from that camera. For me, it is particularly important because the end result of my photography is print. The only way I can do that is for me to process the raw files the way I want. Okay?
Yes, very well said po. Next.
Okay, so next, sabi ni Berlin, Sir Noel, newbie here, paano nyo po na freeze ang water pagkuha ng picture?
Yep.
Should I use a filter for my DSLR?
That's a very good question, and also requires kind of a technical answer. The first, this is how I'll answer it. The first answer is learn to shoot manually. Don't shoot in any automated mode. Kasi doing something like this is called slow shutter or long exposure, either one of the two. Pag sinabi nating long exposure, you're doing like 15 seconds, 30 seconds and up, okay? And basically you could turn the water into a fog with that. And that's another way of creative license, okay? You use a what's called a 10-stop ND filter. It's basically black, okay? It lets very little light in, and it allows you to set your shutter speed much more than you could ever set with the camera, okay? You'd have to put it on bulb mode, and then you'd have to make some determination of how long you want to keep the shutter open. This is all very technical. Yung ginamit kong example dun sa slide where it says seeing with your gift of sight, that seascape that I shot, that one is a slow shutter style or technique. What you would do is you would take various photos. First of all, what you would do is you would compose it. You would make your composition first, okay? And of course, you have to be on a tripod because this is slow shooting. You absolutely have to be on a tripod. You compose, and once you've chosen your composition, you work on your settings. So basically, what I would do is I would shoot it in 1 second, 1.5 seconds, up to 2 seconds, and then I would take several shots, and I would basically choose the best one that I have. That's how you capture different types of motion. Kasi sometimes, the longer you keep the shutter open, nawawala yung motion ng tubig. So you have to find some balance where it's not too fast, but not too slow and too long.
Yeah.
So this is all manual work, and I would encourage you, Berlin, if you like shooting this sort of thing, go to YouTube and learn. Look at the subject, long exposure photography.
Yes. And it takes patience po to capture those
Yep.
photos.
Absolutely.
Okay. Next question po sa cellphone. Is it fine po to use filters? Does it give justice sa outcome ng picture, especially sa viewers?
Yeah, I shoot with a lot of filters. I use different types of filters. Why is that? Kasi one reason for it is because I'm old school. I like to do everything in camera. Sure, I can post-process it. I can also do that. And in a pinch, if I have no other choice, I will just keep a note to myself and say, oh, for this particular spot, I have to recover the highlights because the highlights were blown, okay? But one way I overcome that is to use a graduated neutral density filter, and that would protect the highlights, the sky, the clouds, and the highlights of the photo, while allowing me to expose for the lower part of the photo and expose more accurately for parts of the image that I want to be more visible, like shadow areas, like the particular subject. So there's nothing wrong with using filters. Sometimes you have to use filters, to capture the photo more accurately. Ang guide ko dito basically is, as much as possible, if you want to capture it the way you saw it and you have to use filters to do it, there's nothing wrong with it.
Good. Got it.
Alright. Okay. So next, si Joven, sabi niya, Sir, since yung mirrorless mas madali mag-shoot using auto mode pero mas nakukuha ang gustong timpla using manual mode. Ano ang mas suggestion ninyo?
I have both. I have a DSLR and I have a mirrorless camera. I have not including the cameras that I showed as an example, no. I have a Nikon Z07. That's a mirrorless camera with 45 megapixels. And I have a Nikon D800E. If you're familiar with this camera, you know that they're not new cameras, they're old. Okay? I never buy new, never. In all my years of photography, I've never bought new. I always bought used.
Wow.
And the answer to your question is, I would use both. Kasi while with a mirrorless camera, you're actually seeing the exposure because it shows you the exposure. Mirrorless cameras have some disadvantage, okay? Kasi when the light is low, hindi maganda yung image sa LCD, especially if your mirrorless camera is kind of older, okay? With the newer mirrorless cameras, they have better quality images on the LCD pag low light. Pero sa akin kasi, mas nakikita ko accurately yung low light pag ang ginagamit ko DSLR because it's reflecting the actual image that you're seeing. Okay? Tapos the other thing nice about using a DSLR is that there's no lag time. If you've ever shot with a mirrorless camera, you know that there's a lag time. When you take a photo, may lag yun for a few seconds. The newer mirrorless cameras don't have that, but they're very expensive. Okay? That's why I don't use the Nikon for events. Kasi pag mag-shoot ka, okay, pag shoot mo, may lag yun. Tapos makaka-shoot ka ulit. It has a lag, which DSLRs do not have. They're very different tools. So I use both. As it applies to landscape photography, if I wanted to take a successive shots of the motion of water, for example, it's hard to do that on the Z7 because if I do it on the Z7, I will miss certain shots because of the lag time. And I hope everybody can follow that and understand that. So yun ang limitations ng mirrorless cameras as opposed to DSLR. And I'm just blessed to have both.
Yes. Yeah, different type of beast.
Yeah.
Yeah. Next question po. Siguro again ito. How much post-processing po do you usually do?
I try not to do a lot of post-processing. I basically work with shadows and highlights. Okay, and I just adjust a little bit of contrast. I add a little bit of clarity. Okay. By the way, I use Lightroom in combination with Photoshop. Lightroom maganda kasi if you have a succession of images, okay, and you basically took the same shots, you can apply the changes on a successive number of shots. You can't do that with Photoshop. But when I have chosen a particular image out of that series, then I take that to Photoshop and I do the rest of the processing there. But I try not to overly do something. That's why I'm a big proponent for getting it right in camera. Because if you get it right in camera, there's really nothing much else that you need to do. And then also the other thing is, if you're careful about noise, the less post-processing you do, the cleaner your images will be. Okay. Of course, nowadays with AI and all these other things, you can work around that. But essentially, if you want to get it right in camera, then your post-processing will be minimal. That's my point. Oh, one other thing. There's one thing that I always get in camera and not in post. I don't do it in post. Okay? I have to make sure that my photos are sharp when I took them. If they're not sharp, I don't use them. Okay? And that's very important. Because in post-processing, when you apply clarity, texture, when you apply post-sharpening, you think you're sharpening your photos, but you're actually not. If you want the photos to be sharp, use a sharp lens. Use the right aperture, use the right technique.
Yes. Yeah, I think it's good.
All right. Last question from Ronald. Ano pong filters ang gamit ninyo, Sir Noel?
Okay, good question. For long exposures, I use a 10-stop ND filter. Okay. And I have a variant of that. I have half of that, like a 5-stop and a 3-stop. And depending on the lighting situation and the shutter speed that I want to get, I would use whatever is applicable. The other thing that I have is ND filters, graduated, not the solid, the graduated ND filters. And again, I have them in different grades so that I can use them depending on the light conditions. The other filter that I have is a reverse grad. And you wonder, what is a reverse grad? If you're shooting the sunset, you don't need to protect the clouds because the lighting is already low. What you need to protect is the setting sun. And that's what a reverse grad does. It creates this graduated portion in the middle part of the filter, and that's specifically to protect the setting sun. That's very important when you shoot a lot of sunset. Okay. The other filter that's important for me is the infrared filter because I like taking infrared shots. And the other one, which is essential even compared to the other filters, is a polarizing filter. make sure you have a polarizing filter. With that, you can get rid of unwanted reflections. You can work the colors better when you're using a polarizing filter. Okay? That's it.
Yes. Galing. Yeah. Very technical, but we love it. Lalo na sa mga gearhead dyan na nakatutok, I'm sure you're loving this this portion of the talk. Yan. Thank you, Sir Noel. Grabe. Yeah.
Ayan,
Kalahin may
so
30 na pala, oh.
So marami pong salamat sa mga nag-send ng questions. Actually, Sir Noel, meron pang mga questions na humahabol. Pero that's where our community can help. No? We have a community called Media and Ministry Forum kung saan if you are not yet a member, please join our Facebook group. Just search Media and Ministry Forum and itutuloy natin yung conversation doon. Sir Noel is in that group. We'll tag him. And I'm sure Sir Noel will be more than happy to answer your questions about photography. Ayun.
Absolutely.
So yeah. So by the way, again, just a reminder, after this webinar, after this live stream, you can actually replay it, share to your friends, sa mga church media team na hindi pa nakahabol or mga photographer friends niyo to catch up at mapanood itong video na ito. Ayun.
Tapos do you announce the winner of the question for the night?
Okay, sige. So sino bang nanalo sa ating question of the night?
Congratulations. Yon, ang nanalo ay si Sir Rick Estrellado. Magic Film Viewfinder. Okay, wrong spelling wrong. Tama na yung spelling niya. Yun, congratulations, bro. Ikaw ang nanalo ng AP Media merch for tonight.
Okay, so just message us at Asia Pacific Media PH para malaman kung paano i-claim ang inyong prize. Ayan, Sir Rick, marami pong salamat. Okay, so siguro, Sir Noel, muli, marami pong salamat for joining us. Any final word of encouragement sa ating mga viewers?
Shoot for yourself. It's the best way to go. I mean, yeah, you could be a professional photographer, but in the end, I experienced the most growth when I shot for myself. And I thank the Lord that He has blessed me to a point that I'm able to enjoy it.
Okay, so with that, marami pong salamat, Sir Noel, and God bless you po for imparting your expertise and experience, as ramdam mo talaga na veteran photographer tong kausap natin.
Na matanda.
Ayun. So again, marami pong salamat, Sir Noel. We'll keep in touch po. Bless po sa inyo. Alright. So with that, guys, marami pong salamat muli. So again, Prince, can we show that information ni Sir Noel as we give our announcement para lang so that people will know where to reach him out. Just go to yung portfolio ni Sir Noel. So, ang daming agagandang pictures na makikita. Ayan. So, again, this Friday na yung ating Multiply Masterclass on Visual Storytelling.
Yes.
And, pwede pang humabol for a few more slots. So, just go to apmedia.org/photography.
Oo, take advantage of this class. So, for sure, sa lahat ng dyan, mga nakatutok tonight na gusto nyo talagang mahasa ang inyong skill. One day na theoretical, but yung second day, bro, yun yung excited ako kasi talaga, we got permits and all. Talagang may kalayaan kayo mag-shoot sa Quiapo area on that Saturday. And first time namin ito gagawin and exciting na.
Ayun, okay. So again, another announcement is yung upcoming Likha Short Film Lab. Ayan, so if you are an aspiring filmmaker, we're inviting church media teams to learn on how to do short films for evangelism, for proclaiming the gospel in the digital space. So make sure to log in to bit.ly/Likha 2023 if you want to get a scholarship for that.
And you can check out Lazada for AP Media merch to support this ministry. Check out yung cool merch namin doon. Just type in AP Media sa Lazada po.
And also, if you find this webinar beneficial and it has helped you, please don't forget to send stars as a way of supporting our ministry dito sa Media and Ministry Forum.
Yes, and check out our Media Ministry Forum Facebook group. Sa lahat ng hindi pa po naka-join dyan, invited po kayo to join this group.
Ayan, and with that, marami pong salamat sa pag-tune in, and we'll see you again or on our next exciting webinar. Ako po si Pat.
Ako po si JR from AP Media Production Team. Maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat. Good night!
Bye! Bye!
Bye.
Do you have a camera? Do you desire to expand your skills and make a difference in your community? Join us for a 2-day in-person photography training. In this Multiply Masterclass, you'll learn how to capture photos that stand out from the rest and gain hands-on experience photographing worship services, community events, and church architecture. Our instructor will guide you through the basics of photography, lighting, and composition. Day 1. Theory and samplers. Day 2 will be a photo walk session in Manila. You'll also have the opportunity to connect with other photographers and share your work in a supportive and collaborative environment. Register now for our 2-day church photography training and take your skills to the next level.
Attention all aspiring filmmakers and directors. Are you ready for LICA 2023 Short Film Lab? Do you have a passion for creating short films and desires to use media to make Jesus known? Then we've got the perfect opportunity for you. Join LICA 2023 and showcase your creativity to the world. The rules are simple. Attend our 4-week short film lab training and create a short film of no more than 10 minutes in length and submit it to our panel of judges. The theme for this year's contest is Wisdom Through Proverbs. So get ready to push your boundaries and create something truly unique. Not only will you get the chance to learn from master Christian filmmakers, showcase your skills, but you'll also have the opportunity to win some incredible prizes, including cash rewards. So what are you waiting for? Join LICA 2023 Short Film Lab today and let your imagination run wild.